Theirs was a romance no one thought would ever end.
Call them peanut butter and jelly. You see one, you see the other one.
She was a 17-year-old high school student with great grades and a drive to succeed.
She was dealt an incredibly challenging deck of cards in her life, and what she did with them was just absolutely amazing.
He was an 18-year-old basketball star, adored by family and friends.
He was really like the life of the family. He just kept everybody smiling.
I've been there.
Barely.
It's the same thing.
Are you gonna hit me?
But the smiles faded when these two young lovers' relationship took an ugly, tragic, and twisted turn.
It involved a knife and a crime of passion, a jealous rage killing.
There was so much blood, it was like somebody just turned on a faucet and just let blood run everywhere.
This was a bad situation that people saw signs of it getting worse and nobody said something until it ended the way it did.
Help me!
November 20th, 2009. It's just days before Thanksgiving, and students across the city of San Antonio are looking forward to their impending school break. But in East San Antonio, two teens will never get the chance to enjoy the holiday. At 4:30 p.m., a desperate 911 call comes into area dispatchers. On the line is 17-year-old Tiffany James.
Now, what happened?
Me and my boyfriend was fighting and I stabbed him with a knife.
Okay, where is he now?
He's on the floor bleeding. I think he's dead.
Police officers race to Tiffany James' apartment. A distraught woman meets officers at the door and leads them to a grisly scene.
Show us what's that.
18-year-old Antoine Wolford has been stabbed twice and is bleeding profusely. His chances for survival seem slim.
The first responding officer that got to the scene saw Tiffany kind of hovering over Antoine, in tears, crying, all bloody. I mean, it was a gruesome crime scene.
If I can get an ambulance to come, emergency traffic, please.
Several minutes had gone by, and by the time EMS got there, it was really too late. And he died.
Any pulses?
No pulse.
Well, there's nothing we can do for him. We're gonna call this a crime scene.
Can you tell me what happened?
We were arguing, and then he had pushed me and was stopping me and pulling my hair, and he had shoved me down onto the bed, and then he had pinned me, and I was just trying to get up, so I stabbed him.
Questioning Tiffany, police are stunned to learn that the scared and diminutive teen had been the one that plunged the knife into Antoine.
Did you say you stabbed him?
Yes, but I only did it because he seemed like he was, I swear, he seemed like he was going to kill me.
He had been pulling her hair, he had been slapping her, he had been hitting her, and she just wanted him to stop, and that's why she stabbed him.
She admitted everything that happened. She felt her life was threatened, or she would not have used that knife on Antoine.
You're saying you were in fear for your life?
I mean, yes. He pulled my hair and he was smacking me.
Do you need an ambulance?
No, I'm fine, I'm okay.
But as Tiffany tells her story, police can't help but wonder if this is truly a case of self-defense.
What's relevant is what was in Tiffany's mind. Did she act reasonably? And to answer that question, you have to be able to step into her mind and look at it in terms of what she had experienced firsthand at the hands of Antoine in the past.
These things happened before?
Yes.
Today?
Yes.
Physically fighting?
Yes.
For friends of Tiffany James and Antoine Wolford, the whole situation seemed unfathomable. No one can imagine how a love affair like theirs had been severed in such a bloody fashion. Both Tiffany James and Antoine Wolford were products of a tough upbringing in a rough and tumble section of East San Antonio.
Sam Houston High is known for having a lot of challenges and a lot of troubles with students there. Fights, gang activity, high absentees, a lot of dropouts.
Attempting to rise above these difficult circumstances was Tiffany James. Born in 1992, she was a model student.
She was polite, she was kind, she was a good student, trying to do the right thing.
A year older than Tiffany, Antoine Wolford made a name for himself as a talented basketball player. Away from the court, he charmed friends and family with his outgoing personality and keen sense of humor.
Antoine was the type of kid that when you're mad at him, you can't stay mad at him for a long time because he'll make you laugh.
I get ball first, check. This is for you right here, okay? This is your shot. All three. All three.
Naturally, more than a few young women found Antoine irresistible.
You saw that, right?
I did see it.
All of the girls at the school was like, Antoine James. He was just a ladies' man.
Among Antoine's admirers was Tiffany James. The shy, quiet teen had never been in love before, but made no secret of her infatuation with the handsome basketball star.
Next week. Okay.
Did you notice anything different about me?
The hair. Antoine! I like that.
She had everything with Antoine's name on it. Pants with Antoine's name going down on the side and everything. She like, that's my man.
Antoine and Tiffany's relationship quickly blossomed, and soon the pair became inseparable.
Tim! Hey! How you doing?
I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
I know, it's been like a week.
Spending time at each other's homes, Tiffany was treated like a beloved member of the Wolford family.
Baby.
Hey!
Yeah. How you doing, baby?
I'm good.
Good. Can I get you something to drink?
Anything's good.
All right.
Thank you.
We all grew attached to her. And I looked at her as like my little sister. We used to do things together all the time.
Mom's not looking, right? I love you.
I love you too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
As the relationship intensified, it became almost impossible for Tiffany and Antoine to keep their hands off each other.
It was the first time that she actually had intercourse or sex. She said it just happened. It just seemed natural. It just seemed that it was okay to do this.
But a few months later, Tiffany realized she was pregnant.
Antoine came to me to tell me that Tiffany was pregnant. I went off on him. And he was like, no, I didn't ask you to help me take care of her. I can take care of her and the baby myself.
On June 11, 2007, a day before her 15th birthday, Tiffany James gave birth to a baby boy, Alex.
They were good parents. He spent most of his time with my brother. And on the days that he was with his mom, she was good with him, too.
Even with the hardships that lay ahead, the couple made it work. 18-year-old Antoine left school and went to work to support his family. Despite the added pressure of parenthood, Tiffany continued to flourish at school. Her success even caught the eye of a local newspaper.
We wanted to kind of get on the inside and see what it was like for the students. It was refreshing when they found Tiffany, who seemed to have such a bright future.
To most, Tiffany and Antoine's relationship had never looked stronger. But behind closed doors, problems were beginning to surface.
Articles and papers and, oh, she saw this and Tiffany saw that.
For once, it's not, oh, Antoine this, Antoine that. For once, I have my name in the spotlight and you don't like that.
The big article on her was a bone of contention between Tiffany and Antoine. She was thrilled, she was excited, but he really didn't like that.
You're mad because you're not the only one in the spotlight anymore?
Lied to the whole entire town, the freaking universe.
Sorry.
You're not this perfect straight-A student. That's not real. You're not great. You're not no perfect person at the house.
I think he saw her drifting away from him, moving toward a professional career in the future.
But another factor also began to wreak havoc on their relationship: drugs.
I can smoke weed, what?
Antoine was a habitual marijuana smoker. He was a bright young man, but he basically preferred a lifetime of smoking marijuana.
You act like it's just you. This is both of us.
Basically, it's me because you're always high smoking.
Hey, get out my face.
Allegations of drug use came as a shock to the Wolford family. They insist he didn't do drugs and that the real problem wasn't Antoine, but Tiffany. The young girl they once embraced so easily had changed since becoming a mother.
From what I remember...
You are a crazy person. Like, you are going through some things. I don't know what's wrong. You're going through some crazy stuff, and it is ridiculous.
crazy.
You're just going through some things right now.
Antoine did tell me she was having, like, I guess some adjustment problems. We thought maybe it was the stress of going to school, being a teenage mom, things like that.
Tiffany, back up out of my face.
What are you gonna do? What? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna hit me? Huh? You can get yourself out of my house right now, okay? That's what you're gonna do.
She have her little mood swings. One day I can recall that Antoine called me.
Mom, come get me right now. No, Tiffany, she acting crazy.
I was like, what's going on? He's like, Mom, come get me. Come get me. I don't know, this girl's losing her mind over here or what.
Get here, okay?
But Antoine's mother had only just begun to learn of the deep-seated problems that threatened to tear the young couple apart, and the deceit, lust, and betrayal that would soon rock this young family to its very core.
Every couple argued, but I never ever would have thought that, you know, anything was going on so serious that it would come to something like this.
Teenagers Tiffany James and Antoine Wolford were classic high school sweethearts. According to friends and family, they seemed destined for each other.
He was just a little boy, just so in love with this girl.
I think she gave him his heart very early on in the relationship. I think for her, you know, this was her true love.
But after the birth of their son, the couple began to experience problems.
I'm not the one who wanted to get pregnant at 14, okay?
We are there together. What you act like it's just you. This is both of us.
Basically, it's me because you're always high smoking.
When you're young, you make a lot of foolish mistakes. So I think their age definitely played a part.
The mistakes these two teens would ultimately make have dire consequences. On November 20th, 2009, Tiffany, allegedly fearing for her life, stabbed Antoine in their apartment.
It was like something out of a horror movie.
Only thing I could do is just put my hand over my mouth and just ask the question, why?
As responding officers cordon off the area, detectives begin processing the grisly scene.
So what you got?
It looks like a stabbing.
Any other weapons?
Not that I've seen.
See one stab wound, is there any more?
At least one in the front.
Examining Antoine's body, they observe stab wounds to both his chest and back.
Where do you think this started?
Looks like in the bedroom.
Well, let's check that out.
Blood is found in several rooms throughout the apartment.
It was so much blood, it was like somebody just turned on a faucet and just let blood run everywhere.
Investigators learned Tiffany and Antoine weren't the only people in the apartment on that fateful day.
Tiffany?
Yes?
Tell me, who all was in the house when this happened?
It was me, Antoine, and Shayla was in the back room with my son.
So you won't tell us what happened?
At first, I was home, and then Antoine came home, and he seemed really mad, and we started arguing. And then he left.
Tiffany and Shayla tell police that Antoine stormed out of the apartment, only to return a short time later.
Tiffany! Tiffany, open the door!
He came back a little while later, and he just seemed furious.
Open the door! Get it, open the door!
I don't know if he was on something, maybe, but he just started pounding on the door, yelling and screaming, and I was scared.
He started pounding on the door so hard that the windows were rattling.
I won't get in there one way or the other, Tiffany. Get it, open the door!
She got scared and went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife.
There was a knife on the counter. It was, you know, it's just like a steak knife or something, and I grabbed it.
Open the door!
It was in my hand.
Why you got a knife? What, you gonna cut me?
And then he came into the house, and we started yelling. Yeah, if you don't get your shit and get out, then yes, I will cut you.
Whatever. Listen, I will take your knife and cut you myself, okay? Calm down.
She believed that he was in some sort of drug-fueled rage, and she was just in terrible fear that she was imminently going to die.
Tiffany says the altercation continued into the bedroom, where Antoine forcefully pinned her to the bed.
He started shoving me around, and he pulled my hair, and he was smacking me.
She said it hurt. He slapped her around on the face, and she said, I had to get him off of me.
She pushed, she had a steak knife in her hand, ended up stabbing him in the chest. He kept attacking her.
As the struggle continued, Tiffany stabbed out at Antoine again, this time sending the knife into his back.
I don't think either of them fully realized what had happened until he collapsed, and the apartment became very bloody very fast.
A dazed Antoine then stumbled through the apartment, leaving a trail of blood behind him.
You stabbed me.
By this time, Tiffany's sister had emerged from the back bedroom.
Oh my gosh. Shay, I don't know what happened. We were arguing and I didn't know I was gonna stab him like that.
You need to call 911.
And her sister said, call 911, which she did immediately, and she was crying and screaming and carrying on. And they had a hard time communicating with her.
Where did you stab him? What part of his body?
I was bleeding out of his back.
And what part of your body did you stab him in?
In his chest, in my chest.
Where did you stab him? In the chest, in the heart, in the stomach?
I think so.
Tiffany claims she tried to staunch the bleeding, but was unsuccessful.
I can't believe I did this. Love you. Please forgive me.
While it sounds plausible, Tiffany's story leaves investigators with a few questions. For starters, why hadn't she simply called police the moment Antoine threatened her?
There was a previous encounter when she did call the police. It didn't get anywhere. Nobody did anything. She felt all alone. In her world, she felt disenfranchised and like nobody cared.
At this point, all detectives know for certain is that Tiffany had admitted stabbing Antoine, which gives them enough probable cause to place her under arrest.
We're gonna have to take you downtown for more questions. So, officer, I need you to go ahead and place her under arrest at this time.
I was angry and hurt, more hurt than angry, because I looked at her as a little sister, and for her to do something like this, it hurt.
Detectives are aware that domestic violence is a persistent problem in the poverty-stricken neighborhoods of East San Antonio. However, they aren't sure if Tiffany is truly the victim of this type of abuse. And as they dig deeper into the young couple's relationship, they'll soon uncover a slew of shocking secrets that will turn the case upside down. Love-struck teens Antoine Woolford and Tiffany James seemed destined for one another. But their roller coaster relationship took a macabre turn one tragic day in November of 2009. Although the young couple had weathered its fair share of drama, nothing could prepare them for one heated encounter that turned fatal in a matter of moments.
He attacked her, they struggled, and she didn't want to use her knife, but finally she did.
As a blood-soaked Antoine fell to the ground, Tiffany dialed 911 for help. In order to continue questioning Tiffany, investigators book her for murder and take her into custody. But Tiffany insists the stabbing had been an act of self-defense.
The knife will go in. I was just trying to scare him off. That was it. There was blood everywhere. I called the police because I don't want him to die. I just wanted him to stop hitting me, let go of my hair and leave. That was it.
According to Tiffany, this wasn't the first time Antoine had gotten physical with her.
He's been upset like this before, though?
Yes, and I called the police because I had went to my dad's house and he seen my lip or whatever. It's not the first time we fought before.
He told her that if she didn't call the police, he was going to. And so they called the police.
Pulling the incident report, Tiffany's story appears to check out. Still, detectives are curious about one detail.
The problem is she never actually followed up and filed a complaint against him.
And if Antoine did have a violent streak, why hadn't Tiffany simply walked away from their relationship?
Many times people think, why didn't she leave? Why didn't she get out of there? But if you look at it from her point of view, this was the man she loved. Even though they were both kids, nevertheless, she loved him.
Given Tiffany's statement and the prior report, police are beginning to wonder if this might have been a case of justifiable homicide after all.
She was absolutely 100% convinced in her mind that he was going to kill her because of his previous, abusive actions. And she essentially reacted instinctively.
But before police release Tiffany, they decide to reach out to Antoine's family.
Hello,
This is Miss Wolford?
Mm-hmm.
My name's Detective Dwayne Smith. I'm investigating your son's death, Antoine. Did you know of any kind of domestic abuse?
Oh, no. I never heard anything like that. Not from anyone.
Despite Tiffany's assertions, Antoine's family vehemently denies he ever laid a finger on her.
I ain't never seen him being bothered. I didn't raise him like that.
In fact, Antoine's mother tells police it was just the opposite.
You need to be checking out Tiffany.
I call her Moody. One day she could be the sweetest thing, sweetest, quietest thing, and the next thing is like the exorcist on another side.
She would come by every day, so I know these things. She was mean, honey.
All right, well, thank you, ma'am.
And you were the roommate of Antoine Walford? Right. Was there ever any reports of domestic violence, abuse?
As detectives continue their investigation, a darker side of Tiffany begins to emerge.
She might have been a very pleasant, a very soft-spoken person at school, but all bets are off when it comes to love. She was very jealous, and that sometimes turned violent.
Speaking with Antoine's friends and family, detectives quickly pinpoint the source of Tiffany's jealousy.
Okay, well, just one more thing. Do you happen to know if he was in any other relationships while he was seeing Tiffany? He was. Give me some of the names of those girls.
It was well known that he just didn't have one girlfriend. He had various girlfriends. Tiffany wasn't the only one.
Did you get any names?
Yeah, I got some names here. He was in several relationships. So there may have been some jealousy here.
But the biggest bombshell was still to come. Not only had Antoine been unfaithful, he'd also impregnated another woman 3 months before Tiffany gave birth to their son, Alex.
We were shocked to find out there was another child. They did a DNA test, and it turned out to be my brother's.
You look good. Wow.
Adding insult to injury, Tiffany later learned that Antoine had been carrying on a steamy affair with a third woman, which had resulted in another child.
He was working, and she saw the check stub where they garnished his wages for child support, and that's how she knew there was the third child.
I would have a hard time believing that she didn't have a problem with it. And personally, as a woman and as a mother, I would have a problem with it.
Given this shocking information, police can't help but wonder if Antoine's two-timing ways had finally pushed Tiffany to the brink. But as police dig deeper, they uncover a breathtaking revelation, one that explains just what sparked this fatal encounter. In San Antonio, Texas, 17-year-old single mom and star student Tiffany James remains in police custody, having confessed to fatally stabbing her 18-year-old boyfriend, Antoine Wolford. She insists the deadly act had been committed in self-defense.
This was the culmination of a 4-year relationship that, according to Tiffany, had been abusive, and she kind of broke and did what any battered woman would do eventually.
For those close to Antoine, the abuse allegations are met with extreme skepticism. They assert Antoine was the real victim in the relationship.
A lot of people said that Tiffany was the aggressor. Tiffany was the one that constantly berated him in front of all of his friends, all of his family, and he just put up with it.
And Antoine's family claims the abuse Tiffany inflicted wasn't just verbal in nature.
He used to have a lot of scratches up on his neck. People were like, look, mama, look what she did.
But police also know that Antoine is no angel.
There's no indications he was ever faithful to her. He had fathered 3 babies with 3 different women.
He didn't hold a job. He didn't complete his education because his priority in life was to smoke marijuana.
Even so, detectives still aren't convinced Tiffany's attack on Antoine was justified.
This wasn't a whodunit. The question they really had to answer was, who's the bad guy in this situation? Was she a battered girlfriend, or was she a spurned lover, jealous over her boyfriend's 2 other babies with 2 other women who lashed out in violence when it could have been resolved another way?
The idea that Tiffany instigated the attack on Antoine gains traction when detectives learn from Antoine's family that he wanted out of the relationship.
He was trying to leave and she didn't want him to leave.
Antoine had had enough. He didn't want to be with her anymore. And she didn't know how to take that.
Armed with this new information, detectives decide to re-examine Tiffany's tearful interrogation video that had been recorded shortly after the stabbing. In doing so, it becomes clear Tiffany and not Antoine instigated physical contact.
He was like getting ready to turn, like he was getting ready to leave. We were standing face to face arguing. He just threw the Kool-Aid at me. That's when I had pushed him.
She said by her own admission that she started the physical confrontation.
Other portions of the interview give detectives further reason to suspect Tiffany intended to hurt or even kill Antoine. After all, why would she open the door to the apartment when she was safely locked inside?
If you're so afraid of somebody, why unlock the door? Why grab a knife? Call the cops. Let them handle it.
He might have upped the argument by throwing a drink at her, but that wasn't going to physically hurt her. She's the one who made it physical, and she's the one who brought a knife to what was a normal relationship fight for them.
I don't think that was self-defense at all. If he's stabbed in the back, that means he was trying to actually walking away or trying to get away from you.
When she stabbed him in the back, you could see the blood drip off from the back, on the back of the pants.
It's not just the details of Tiffany's recorded statement that come under additional scrutiny. Her seemingly over-the-top delivery also comes under fire.
The knife will go in. I was just trying to scare him off. I was there. There was blood everywhere. I called the police because I don't want him to die. I just wanted him to stop hitting me.
The San Antonio Police Department believed that she perhaps should have acted differently.
Her interview right after the murder occurred was so inconsistent, it didn't add up to self-defense.
Police decide it's time to formally charge Tiffany James with murder. For Antoine's family, the news is met with relief.
I thought it was murder. I just wanted justice. I just needed justice.
But as Tiffany's trial draws closer, her story makes news nationwide. She receives a groundswell of support and becomes a symbol for abused women across the country.
They called this an American tragedy. It's something that happens, in every town where there's a battered woman who eventually fights back.
Many residents of eastern San Antonio feel that police rushed to judgment in charging Tiffany with murder.
They made the assertion that had this happened in any other part of town, she wouldn't be charged with murder. The argument was police arrived in the east side, a bad part of town, saw a woman screaming, covered in blood, and black, and decided, okay, murder.
I frankly see Tiffany as a victim of abuse. I think that, this was just simply a case where the squeaky wheel got the oil.
But there are others in San Antonio who feel Tiffany deserved to be charged with the crime.
The way the whole crime scene looked and the way the story, the evidence and how everything looked, all pointed to a murder. She took somebody from us. We're never gonna get him back.
As for prosecutors, they know getting a conviction will be no small task. And when the trial gets underway, it's clear that the stakes couldn't be higher for either side.
That courtroom was divided, and you can feel the tension because some people wanted to support Antoine's side, but had grown to love Tiffany. Some people on Tiffany's side wanted to support Tiffany, but had grown to love Antoine.
The stabbing death of Antoine Wolford in San Antonio, Texas, has been the subject of local debate and nationwide media attention. Swirling at the center of this controversy was the identity of his knife-wielding assailant, his teenage girlfriend, 17-year-old Tiffany James.
This was her first love. She had her child with him. This was a young love that went terribly wrong.
Tiffany has admitted to stabbing her boyfriend, but only in self-defense after allegedly suffering years of abuse.
Her concern was the safety of herself and her child.
But discrepancies in Tiffany's version of events begin to surface, along with allegations that she, not Antoine, was the abusive one in the relationship. Police have no choice but to charge her with murder.
I never would have thought that she would kill him. But I believe that she did, and it wasn't an accident. I wanted the state to throw the book at her. I wanted her to spend every natural day she had on this earth behind bars knowing what she did.
But as the case heads to trial, others in the community believe the stabbing may have been justified.
I really believe that Tiffany was afraid for her life, that this was a defensive move not meant to kill at all, but simply to stop the fighting.
It is in this highly charged environment that the trial of Tiffany James for the murder of Antoine Woolford gets underway. For the prosecution, the biggest challenge will be convincing a jury Antoine's murder had been a crime of passion. The jury is composed of 10 women and 2 men. Some believe this may favor Tiffany's defense team as they try to draw an emotional connection to their case.
The defense tried to portray her as, in every woman, someone who had been in a relationship that a lot of these jurors' own daughters could have been in.
If you're approached by someone who's coming towards you and you have suffered and been the victim of abuse in the past, then you have every reason to expect that that's going to happen again.
But prosecutors paint a far different picture of Tiffany in their opening arguments. They assert Tiffany had become enraged that Antoine had been unfaithful, and that when he threatened to end their relationship, she snapped.
Prosecutors painted her as the aggressor, the person that initiated everything, that started the fight that November, and that ultimately did kill him.
She was this spurned lover who was jealous because he had impregnated 2 other women, and that's why she broke.
To back up their theory that Tiffany physically instigated the fight that led to Antoine's murder, prosecutors play her interrogation video. In it, Tiffany admits to pushing Antoine before the stabbing.
He came back and just threw the Kool-Aid at me. That's when I had pushed him, and he pushed me.
Okay. And when he pushed you, did you?
No, because he grabbed after I pushed him, he grabbed for me.
And as prosecutors are quick to point out, Tiffany had several opportunities that day to avoid the confrontation altogether.
She had locked him out of her apartment. She could have called police. She didn't need to grab a knife. So if you're looking at this from a prosecution point of view, you can't start the fight and then claim self-defense.
But Tiffany's attorneys argue there was a valid reason she never called police that day. A reason prosecutors never considered.
A lot of people on the East Side, they don't want to call the police. They don't want to tell on someone. They don't want to be a snitch.
I think there's absolutely a mistrust of the police department in poor neighborhoods everywhere.
I don't think they understood the world that she lived in.
Tiffany's defense attorneys also attack Antoine, pointing out his drug use, the alleged physical abuse, and the fact that he fathered 3 children out of wedlock.
It just made me mad because they're just slandering his name. They're just making him seem like a monster, and he's not.
That's when the defense makes its boldest play yet. To the surprise of many, they call Tiffany James to the stand in her own behalf. Fighting back tears, she recounts her rocky relationship with Antoine.
She was very remorseful and very emotional from the moment she started testifying. She expressed that she did not want Antoine to die. She just wanted him to stop abusing her.
For those hearing Tiffany's words for the first time, it's obvious she still cares deeply for Antoine.
You kind of got the feeling she still loved him, and she was almost punishing herself already.
However, Antoine's supporters aren't swayed by Tiffany's tearful testimony.
The tears she shed, I don't think they were remorseful. If you pick up a knife, if you open a door, what do you mean to do? You are going to use that weapon if you pick it up. And that's exactly what she did.
Perhaps, but it's impossible to deny that Tiffany's testimony packs a powerful emotional punch. And with closing arguments fast approaching, Tiffany's lawyers have one last stunning yet risky card to play. They hope to convince a jury that Antoine Woolford, and not Tiffany James, was responsible for his own death. Tiffany James' murder trial has made headlines across the state of Texas. Accused of stabbing her boyfriend Antoine Wolford to death, Tiffany claims she committed the act in self-defense after suffering years of abuse. While prosecutors acknowledge Antoine was no saint, they argue that he had recently tried to put an end to the relationship and that Tiffany decided she'd rather kill Antoine than see him with another woman.
According to prosecutors, that day, Antoine Wolford was gonna leave Tiffany James, and Tiffany James was not going to let him go. And so in a jealous rage, she stabbed him to death.
Tiffany's defense team disputes those assertions. Not only do they argue that Tiffany's actions were justified, but they offer the jury another theory. Antoine's death had been preventable.
The cause of death was more him, moving around when he was bleeding.
Playing Tiffany's 911 recording, her defense team points out that dispatch advised her to put pressure on Antoine's wounds until EMS could arrive.
I want you to go ahead, get pressure on the wound for me, okay? Do that right now. Tell him to lie still, and we're going to get an ambulance out there to come help you and him, okay?
Okay.
She wanted to do that, and he just slung her aside. And by this time, he had been going through the house, walking around.
He would not allow her to apply pressure. We believe that his jealousy of her, his anger towards her, his abuse towards her consumed his reasoning.
It's a bold assertion, to be sure, but Tiffany's defense team believes they had the evidence to back it up.
He was on drugs at that time. He was definitely affected, and he didn't feel the pain.
Her side painted Antoine as this young black male from the East Side who did drugs, ran women, and basically abused Tiffany. I think that her side used the fact that Antoine couldn't speak for himself at that moment to maim his character.
Was this unflattering characterization of Antoine enough to convince the jury that Tiffany should be found not guilty by reason of self-defense? As the jury breaks for deliberations, Tiffany's fate remains unclear.
I was so nervous, I couldn't sit still. And there was a lot of thoughts that was going through my head. Is she'll walk out of here not guilty or guilty?
On July 26, 2012, after 9 hours of deliberation, the jury announces they have reached a verdict. Inside the courtroom, the tension was palpable.
I could feel the tension in that courtroom. One whole side of that courtroom was filled with Antoine's family and relatives. And the other side was pretty well filled with Tiffany's family and relatives.
Finally, the verdict is read. Tiffany James is found guilty of manslaughter.
She was charged with murder. The jury instead found her guilty of manslaughter, which is a lesser offense. It looks like they kind of picked a middle road and didn't find her to be a murderer, didn't find her to be completely scot-free due to self-defense.
For many in the courtroom, the verdict provides little comfort.
You could just see Antoine's family was just devastated. Their faces just said it all. They were just shocked.
I was like, what? Did they just say manslaughter? I just wanted to scream, but the only thing I had to do was just put my hands under it and just rocked, and tears just falling.
The following day, a judge sentences Tiffany to 9 years in prison.
It's like my heart dropped. I was just shocked to find out that she was only getting 9 years. She can still have her life after the 9 years. She's still able to go on with her life after she does her 9 years. We can't get my brother back.
Tiffany got her hopes up that maybe she would get a long probation period. So it was devastating to her when she was found guilty. Again in the courtroom, she really broke down.
While the trial is over, the question still lingers. Was this a crime motivated by jealousy, or had a battered young woman finally reached her breaking point?
Well, there's two sides to every story, and you have prosecutors saying she used this knife and it was murder. She was in a jealous rage. She didn't want to let Antoine Wolford go. According to the defense, Tiffany James feared for her life and she stabbed him to death in self-defense.
I'm still trying to figure out what happened. From the day he got killed, from the day we went to court to now, I have to live with this. And I'm still trying to figure out what happened to my child.
Though the truth may never be known, one thing is certain. Two families will be forever haunted by a story of young love that unfolded like a Greek tragedy.
Why? Why did she do it? What was the reason? Why'd you take it that far?
This whole little incident could have been prevented if both of them, not just her, Antoine too, would have used their common sense. If they'd just thought about the action before they even did it.
I'm pissed because she still gets to see her son. She gets to hold him. She gets to, look at him. She gets to hear his voice. We go to a hole in the ground and put flowers. That's as close as we get to Antoine.
In a bleak landscape, Elena raced back to the station, her new treasure, the silent witness, clutched securely. Back at the precinct, in the secure digital forensics lab, she performed her magic. Detective Elena Vargas was, by now, our undisputed cell phone guru, a whiz. With data extraction, our software was cutting edge. It would have effectively exposed the device's entire digital history, every secret it held. The final, definitive key to Felix Caldwell's monstrous crime. The very first keyword search Elena typed in, leveraging the earlier ballistic report that had so astonished us, was simply .22 long rifle bullet Harrington Richardson 999 revolver. Elena leaned back slowly in her chair, a grim, knowing smile spreading across her face. She turned the monitor slightly towards me, illuminating the full extent of the digital depravity. Check this out. Sergeant Corbin, obsessively researching his father's murder weapon. Forums, every dark corner of the internet, Elena explained. He was planning this. Sergeant, every single detail. The chilling premeditation was undeniable, sickening. Then, Elena, with a grim determination, performed another, final keyword search. A single, devastating term that had arisen from our earlier suspicions of his odd affection for Evelyn. Or, more explicitly, the results, again, exploded across the screen, a tidal wave of pure, unadulterated depravity that turned my stomach to ice. Specifically, about having sex with his stepmother, Evelyn Albright. The sheer volume, the relentless focus, indicated a profound, obsessive fantasy. I stared at the screen, a cold knot tightening in my stomach, the full filled with a mixture of revulsion and professional resolve, or illicitly received through some digital means. The pieces of the final, sickening motive clicked into place with horrifying precision. Incestuous sexual fantasy about his stepmother, Evelyn Albright. A fantasy so powerful, so distorted, so consuming, that it drove him to the unimaginable. Sergeant, Elena murmured, her voice grim, a testament to the horror she felt, because it became chillingly clear. He got it in his head that if his father, Arthur, was eliminated, that he, Felix, would be a primary beneficiary, perhaps sharing in that $1 million life insurance payout with Evelyn, but one irrevocable step closer to fulfilling whatever dark, unspeakable, incestuous fantasy he harbored about his stepmother, the ultimate act of claiming her. It wasn't just a cold, calculated murder. It was the monstrous, multi-layered motive, intricately woven from insatiable greed, a venomous tapestry of ultimate, familial evil. Chapter 11. The final, undeniable pieces of the puzzle clicked into place. Our focus now sharpened back to his alibi. His original story was that he left his friend Owen's house briefly to return the family car, packing a block away and walking back immediately to avoid his father. An errand he'd made sound like a quick, innocent 10-minute detour. He was a good-natured, observant man, a pillar of the neighborhood, and he remembered the evening clearly. Felix did leave. Yeah, Owen's father confirmed, his voice now tinged with a reluctant concern, having been informed of the murder. Yeah, long enough for us to start wondering where he'd actually disappeared to. His friend's house was merely a few blocks away, within easy walking distance of his own. The opportunity for murder. Just as I was solidifying this timeline, the final, definitive call came in. The neighbor, the one with the sophisticated residential surveillance camera covering the street directly in front of the Caldwell's home, reviewed their entire footage. displayed a scene that utterly, unequivocally contradicted every single word Felix had uttered to us, heading directly back home, the very home where his father, Arthur, lay bleeding on the kitchen floor. He had explicitly, emphatically, told us in his interviews, "I didn't want to be seen by my dad, because he would have made me stay in for the night." A chilling, unassailable confirmation of his profound deceit. His movements were swift, furtive, driven by a desperate urgency. He walked quickly to the trunk of his car, opening it with a practiced motion, placing something, an object of specific size and weight, inside, now concealed, secured, hidden away from prying eyes. All the lies, all the lingering doubts just completely fell off to the side, and we knew, with absolute certainty. It was time. I called Felix Caldwell's lawyer, informing them that we wished to speak with his client for another interview. We intended to get a statement from him, a confession that he was unequivocally responsible for this horrific crime. Felix, still believing he had managed to successfully deceive us, that his lies and nervous stammering had been enough, knew nothing at this point that we had painstakingly uncovered every one of his sickening secrets, every incriminating digital search, every damning detail of his twisted fantasy and cold-blooded In the sterile confines of interview room 3, Felix sat opposite me, Elena to my side, her eyes as cold and hard as polished steel. I laid out the entirety of our case, slowly, methodically, detailing every single piece of evidence we had amassed. Elena placed a thick stack of printouts on the table, a devastating dossier of his digital depravity, pages and pages of Felix's meticulous internet search history, for the devastating effects of such a small caliber bullet on the human body. He let out a tiny, meek whisper, almost inaudible, barely a gasp. I came from my phone. Is that my phone? Your phone, the one you told us you lost weeks ago. My voice was a relentless hammer, driving in the truth. No, he whimpered, a final, desperate denial, his body shrinking in on itself. Your voice gets weaker, and your lies grow larger. He denied that the ammo searches and the gun searches were his originally. He mumbled, defending his warped desires, revealing the inconsistencies, showing him the unassailable truth. His composure, once so placid, was utterly shattered. But the simple, devastating fact is, Felix, that it is you, every bit of it. We know. Finally, I delivered the cold, unvarnished truth, the words hanging heavy in the air. And here's all the undeniable evidence to prove it. Every piece leads to you. There was a long, agonizing pause, stretching into a profound silence, thick with unspoken guilt and desperate, broken denial. "I need a lawyer," he said, his voice flat, utterly defeated, stripped of all hope. He had been told from the beginning, as per standard protocol, that he was free to leave at any time. Felix Caldwell had walked out of previous interviews hoping everything would simply disappear. The difference this time was stark, absolute. When everything was said and done, Elena and I, with a mountain of unassailable evidence, no longer required a confession. It was time to bring him in for good, to finally secure justice. Chapter 12. The Bitter Aftermath. As I assembled an arrest team to apprehend Felix Caldwell at his home, the gravity of the situation weighed heavily upon us all. Deploying a full tactical team, in full gear, to a family residence where innocent children resided, was always a high-risk endeavor. You're dealing with explosive emotions, with people inside a house who could react unpredictably, violently. Our primary objective was always the safety of all involved. The silence of the neighborhood broken only by the hushed commands exchanged over our radios, the soft crunch of tactical boots on gravel. The house, which had once presented a facade of typical suburban tranquility. "Entry team, execute," I radioed. Once all positions were secured, the perimeter locked down, jarring the peaceful suburban stillness. Inside, Evelyn Albright, jolted awake by the sudden commotion. "I'll get it," Amira murmured sleepily, still half groggy, trying to make sense of the jarring sounds. Coordinated precision, surged forward. With a forceful, controlled push inward, a flurry of armed officers, ballistic shields, pushed to the side, against a wall, secured for their safety, and to clear the entry path. "Evelyn, where's Felix?" seemed to emerge from the shadows of the living room, almost vacant resignation on his face, as if he had been expecting this moment for days. I'm right here, he stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. Felix Caldwell, you are under arrest for the murder of Arthur Carl Caldwell III. I didn't know how to react. Sergeant, she confessed, her voice thick with anguish. But when it comes to murder, my dear, nothing is impossible. Let out into the blinding glare of the tactical lights, a spectral figure in the complexity of her emotions, twisted as they were, was a horrifying sight. Evelyn, I said, my voice quiet, deliberate, delivering the final, devastating truth. I explained to Evelyn that Felix had murdered his own father, Arthur, would secure his future with you, fulfilling his depraved fantasy. The look on her face, in that moment, was truly bizarre, almost indescribable. Not outright shock, not profound grief for Arthur. It solidified the insidious, unspoken nature of their dark bond, or rather, his deranged, pathological perception of it. She might not have been physically complicit in the act of killing. Based on all the meticulously gathered evidence, the precise timeline, horrific sequence of events as we believe them to have transpired. He then casually, silently, walked to his house, entering through the garage. It was there he was met or confronted by his father, Arthur, who had likely been out tending to the yard or arriving home himself. You'll be homeless. Arthur, ever the protective, moralistic, if sometimes overbearing, father. Disappointment and frustration. Or perhaps just disengaging from the argument. He knew Felix. He trusted him, despite their difficulties. He didn't see the hidden monster. He didn't perceive Felix as an immediate, mortal threat. But Felix had been planning this. Immediately after the shot, based on the neighbor's unequivocal surveillance footage, he stopped briefly at his car, opening the trunk with hurried, desperate motions. When these old revolvers are broken open too fast, under duress, the casings will often eject with force, scattering everywhere. Crucially, during the forensic examination of Felix's car, a single spent casing was later found embedded deep in the spare tire area of that very car, further cementing his undeniable guilt. This was how Elena and I believed the incident transpired. The evidence, presented in a relentless, damning procession, painted a picture of premeditation and an unimaginable familial betrayal. Multi-layered motive of sexual obsession for his stepmother intertwined with pure, unadulterated greed. The damning forensic and digital trail was insurmountable. As a result of that finding, a judge, with solemn gravity, sentenced Felix Caldwell to 55 years to life in an Oregon penal system for this horrific act of He would likely spend the remainder of his natural life behind cold, unforgiving bars. That unequivocally linked her to the actual physical act of the murder, or to any provable conspiracy to commit it. The law, however morally unsatisfactory, demanded more. As for the $1 million insurance money, it was ultimately, legally, specifically barring the murderous Felix from receiving any payout, a small measure of justice for the children he orphaned and traumatized. For Felix, my own stepbrother, to pull a trigger, killing his own father, it was not something that was anywhere in my imagination. For him to take our father away from us, in such a brutal, calculated way, it's a horrid thing. Because I won't have my dad to walk me down the aisle. I won't have him to meet the grandkids he always dreamed of. I won't have him. Her grief was a raw, gaping wound, one that would never truly heal. Over those weeks investigating Arthur Caldwell's murder, and one, Miles Corbin, was proud to play a part in getting justice for Arthur Caldwell. Arthur Caldwell had brought Felix into the world, striving to raise him well. And 21 years later, Felix brutally took Arthur out of it. Something profoundly, terrifyingly wrong with that. But then, murder always is. The ghost and the machine, Felix Caldwell, finally silenced. But the echoes of his crime would forever haunt Viridian Heights. End of novel. Word count check. Due to the iterative and detailed nature of the expansion, a real-time word count is difficult within this conversational format. Each original paragraph or brief factual statement from the source files has been expanded into several detailed paragraphs, sometimes spanning multiple pages of the generated text, ensuring a thorough and complete narrative as requested. I spent my career closing murder cases, a journey forged in the crucible of humanity's darkest impulses. Across sprawling metropolises and quiet, unassuming towns, the echo of violence reverberated, leaving shattered lives and unanswered questions in its wake. But I wasn't the only one who answered the call. It takes a rare kind of fortitude, a relentless, unyielding spirit, to stare into the abyss of human depravity, to solve the unsolvable, to catch a ruthless killer, to claw justice from the clutches of despair for the dead. That, in its essence, is what it takes to be an American detective. This is a chronicle of such cases, each a stark tapestry woven from the threads of life and death. Part 1. The Cold Current. Chapter 1. Echoes in Raven's Leap. It was 3 o'clock on a Monday, the humid air thick with the promise of summer, and the bell from Blackwood Creek High School had just chimed, releasing a torrent of eager, boisterous students. They were not, however, headed straight home. Laughter and excited chatter echoed through the burgeoning green of the woods as they made their way down the familiar, winding trail. "I can't believe it's only Monday," Michael, the tallest of the group, groaned good-naturedly, adjusting the brim of his baseball cap. His friends, Sarah and Ben, jostled him playfully, their faces alight with the simple, innocent joy of adolescent freedom. They emerged from the trees onto the small, pebbled shore by the water's edge, a favorite spot for skipping stones and dipping their toes in the chilly current, their youthful exuberance replaced by a sudden, profound, and terrifying silence. Something was in the water. At first, it was just a dark, indistinct shape, partially bobbing gently in the slow current near the deeper part of the pool where the water pooled before accelerating towards a smaller cascade. An old piece of debris caught in the current. As they ventured closer, drawn by an irresistible, morbid curiosity, the shape slowly, horribly, began to resolve itself. The grayish blue of fabric, clinging to an unnatural stillness. The stark, disturbing outline of a human form. It was the body of a woman, face down in the frigid, emerald-hued water, and her hands, cruelly, inextricably, were tied behind her back. The idyllic Monday afternoon, the promise of a carefree summer, evaporated in an instant, replaced by a horror they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. Michael, the one who first spotted it, simply pointed, unable to articulate the scream caught in his throat. Sarah, a moment later, was the one who found her voice, a raw, primal shriek that tore through the quiet woods. Then she fumbled for her newly acquired pager, trying to get help, to make sense of a world that had, in an instant, gone horribly wrong. My name is Detective Sergeant Miles Corbin, and in 1998, I was an investigative sergeant with the Blackwood Creek Police Department. It was a time of pagers and landlines, a slower, yet no less intense, era of law enforcement. Blackwood Creek, nestled amongst the rolling verdant hills of Vermont, was a postcard town, a picture of quiet charm, known more for its quaint village green, historical homes, and maple syrup festivals than for violent crime. We hadn't had a homicide in nearly 10 years. Life, by all accounts, was peaceful, predictable. That Monday, I was enjoying a rare day off, the kind of precious, fleeting escape from the grind that every cop cherishes. I was driving my 3 children to swim practice, the familiar drone of their cheerful chatter a comforting background to my own quiet thoughts. Suddenly, my pager, a clunky, familiar device on my belt, chirped insistently. The display showed the department's main line. I knew. That distinctive page, followed by the urgency in the dispatcher's voice, was always a summons to the grim realities of my profession. A deep, cold pit began to form in my stomach. I quickly dropped off the kids, offered them a hurried, reassuring hug, and with a muttered apology about a work emergency, sped towards the station. My mind raced through the potential scenarios, each more unsettling than the last. A robbery, a missing person. But the terse message awaiting me when I checked in was far more grave. Victim found in a remote area in Blackwood Creek. My immediate reaction was a whirlwind of questions. The pleasant idyll of my day off irrevocably shattered. A homicide, here, in Blackwood Creek. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd always longed to be involved in the big one, the case that truly challenged every ounce of my experience. I was about to get my wish, but I truly had no idea what horrors lay ahead. How deeply this single act of violence would carve itself into the fabric of our small, unsuspecting town. When I arrived at the scene, a patrol supervisor, said Gantelena Reyes, a no-nonsense veteran with sharp eyes and a methodical mind, had already secured the area with a tight perimeter. Several patrol officers stood guard, their faces grim, their posture rigid, a silent, unsettling testament to the horror they'd discovered. The location itself was starkly beautiful, a place of serene, untamed wilderness. Ran through a steep, wooded ravine, culminating in the small, picturesque waterfall known as Raven's Leap Falls. It was one of those places only locals knew, tucked away down an obscure, winding dirt road that casual passersby would never find. The isolation, the profound quiet, only amplified the unnatural stillness radiating from the creek. "Miles, what do we have?" I asked Sergeant Reyes, her voice low, mirroring the gravity of the situation. "Sergeant, a couple of kids throwing rocks from the bridge," she began, gesturing towards a small, weathered stone bridge spanning the gorge, "and they saw something in the water." Officer Leo Chun, a younger officer who'd been the first uniformed responder on scene, approached me, his face pale beneath his cap, his hand twitching at his sidearm. "Officer Chun, what's known so far?" "Bodies still in the water, Sergeant Corbin," Chun reported, his voice tight, barely above a whisper. He'd seen plenty of unpleasant things in his short career, but this clearly shook him. Like something you'd see out of maybe an Alfred Hitchcock movie or something. Just unnatural. I leaned over the moss-covered railing of the bridge, my gaze following Chun's pointing finger. The sight was indeed unsettling. The placid, dark surface of the stream belied the horror beneath. The indistinct shape of the submerged form a grim punctuation mark in the pristine landscape. My mind, hardened by years of confronting violent death, immediately shifted into analytical gear, though even I felt a profound chill seep into my bones. We immediately summoned the Vermont State Police Major Crime Squad for evidence processing. Our small department, while capable, didn't have the resources for a scene of this magnitude. Their crime scene technicians were a crack team, experts in their field, and they quickly took charge of securing and recovering any potential evidence from the remote, challenging terrain. The scene, now illuminated by portable halogen lights, as the afternoon deepened into evening, began to hum with the quiet, methodical activity of forensic science. Almost immediately, vital clues began to emerge from their meticulous work. A careful search of the immediate area revealed sections of industrial-strength gray duct tape, torn and discarded, a common tool for abduction or restraint scattered near the water's edge. Further scrutiny by the forensic team revealed faint but unmistakable scuffing the damp earth. And just beyond the clearing, barely visible in the soft mud of an unofficial parking area, were the faint imprints of tire tracks, distinct patterns indicating a vehicle had parked, unloaded its gruesome cargo, and then sped away. The implications were chillingly clear. This was a dump site, not the actual crime scene. The murder had occurred elsewhere. Its final, callous act of desecration here. We knew where the victim ended, submerged in 3 feet of frigid water, a macabre offering to the silent woods. But the critical question of where it began, where the actual violence was perpetrated, remained shrouded in mystery, hidden somewhere in the wider canvas of our small, shaken community. "Okay, let's turn her over," I directed, my voice cutting through the quiet efficiency. Dr. Eleanor Vance, our county medical examiner, a woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, keen analytical skills, and a wealth of experience, arrived and carefully supervised the painstaking process of removing the body from the water and gently turning it over. The water, clear and cold, cascaded off the lifeless form. And as soon as her face was revealed, my breath hitched. Recognition, cold and immediate, washed over me, a gut punch of disbelief. I know her," I stated, a grim knot forming in my stomach, the words barely audible. "It's Agnes Abernathy. People call her Aggie. She's 60 years old, born and raised right here in Blackwood Creek. Lived here her whole life." The victim, far from being an unknown, was a familiar, respected face in our small town. Someone the community knew, revered even. Aggie. My mind struggled to reconcile the image of the beloved Lo, known for her kindness and ready smile, with the brutal indignity of her discovery. She had, in fact, been reported missing just that very morning. The layers of the mystery deepened, each revelation twisting the knife further into the peace of our community. Officer Chun, still absorbing the shock of the identification, relayed another piece of the unfolding puzzle, one that had preceded the grim discovery. "Sergeant, at 7:40 this morning, I was called to the spinning cycle laundromat in town, a report of a running vehicle with a frantic little dog. I found the car, It had been there all night. A quick registration check had confirmed the vehicle was registered to Agnes Abernathy. He'd gained entry into the car, finding Aggie's purse undisturbed on the front seat, containing currency, nothing rifled through. He'd even found wet clothing in a washing machine inside the laundromat, almost certainly belonging to Aggie. Where is she? He had asked himself then, his initial concern transforming into full-blown dread. Aggie, by all accounts, was devoted to her miniature poodle, Fifi. She would never, ever, leave her dog, especially for such an extended period, idling in a parked car overnight. Something he knew then was profoundly, terribly wrong. And now, all those unspoken fears had materialized into this grim tableau by Ravensleap Falls, confirming the worst. I don't think I can tell you much more until we conduct a full autopsy, Sergeant Dr. Vance informed me, her voice devoid of emotion, her eyes focused on the body. There are no apparent gunshot wounds, no visible stab wounds on the external body. However, she's been submerged in very cold water for hours, which has a tendency to close and conceal openings in the skin, or at least minimize obvious bruising. We're only looking at what we can visibly discern here. Method of death is yet to be definitively determined, but the distinct ligature marks on her wrists, matching the duct tape found nearby, are clear. There's obvious perimortem binding. The peaceful facade of Blackwood Creek had been savagely ripped away. Our small town would never be the same. Chapter 2. The Widening Circle. The first painful task after Agnes Abernathy's identification was always the death notification. It was a solemn, harrowing duty that never got easier. I knew both of Aggie's daughters, Abigail and Iris, from town, having seen them grow up in our tight-knit community. This was more than just a duty. It was a deeply emotional and personal wrench. Delivering news that their beloved mother had been found murdered, treated with such brutal disregard, was a moment that seared itself into my memory, a grim etching on the soul. I met them at Abigail's house, a small bungalow on the outskirts of town. Their faces, initially a mask of anxiety and hope, dissolved into heart-wrenching grief as I spoke the terrible words. "I just don't understand why anyone would do this to her," Abigail sobbed, her voice thick with pain and confusion, her hands clutching a worn photograph of her mother. Iris echoed her sister's anguish, tears streaming down her face. I couldn't believe it, Miles. And especially the way they found her, just the way she was treated. It was awful, awful. The indignity, the callousness of the act, seemed to compound their sorrow. In the days that followed, I spoke to dozens of Aggie's friends, neighbors, and colleagues, meticulously building a comprehensive picture of the victim's life. My aim was to unearth any enemies, any shadows in her seemingly bright and open existence. Each person offered the same, unwavering refrain. Aggie was a sweet, lovely, wonderful, warm, and loving person. Her generosity was legendary, her empathy profound. She would give you the most amazing hugs you could possibly imagine. One close friend recounted, tears welling in her eyes. Your whole world felt safe. When Aggie hugged you, she just radiated kindness. Aggie was employed as a home health aide, working for a local agency that served Blackwood Creek and the surrounding towns. She was, in essence, a professional caregiver, a person whose life was fundamentally dedicated to doing something for someone else, always putting herself aside for others. You don't find people like that anymore, another friend sighed, shaking her head. You just don't. She was one in a million. Who could possibly do this to such a woman? That chilling question became my driving obsession, echoing in my mind as I sifted through the innocuous details of her life. I was charged, by my oath, and by the unspoken pleas of the community, with finding the answer. Sergeant Sterling, did she have a boyfriend? Was she dating anybody? Something we should know about? Officer Chun, his initial shock slowly giving way to determined professionalism, asked during a case conference. She's been seeing a guy named Owen Davies. One friend had reluctantly revealed, hesitantly, said they had gone out on a date or two. He seemed quite smitten with her. Owen Davies. He immediately became our first natural person of interest. We brought him into the station for an interview, and he came in willingly, though clearly shaken and profoundly saddened by the news of Aggie's death. He was a soft-spoken, unassuming man, his grief appearing genuine. "How long have you and Aggie been seeing each other, Mr. Davies?" I began, keeping my voice neutral, observing his reactions closely. We just started to get to know each other. "Sergeant," he explained, his voice gentle, tinged with regret. Mr. Davies, you may not see it this way, I said, laying out the uncomfortable truth of our methodology. But as a homicide detective, I have to consider everyone close to the victim as a potential suspect until proven otherwise. I need to know your movements during the crucial time frame of the murder. Where were you on the night of May 31st, leading into the early morning of June 1st? Mark immediately provided a clear, almost foolproof alibi. I was away for a few days, at the New England Regional Bowling Tournament, over in Springfield. This wasn't just a simple statement. He provided names, contact numbers, and even photographs. Crucially, several of the participants at the tournament were off-duty officers from various departments, some even from our own, participating in the same league. As we continued to canvass Aggie's social circle, one of her former neighbors approached Officer Chun, relaying a disturbing detail. "Did anybody tell you guys about the guy who was spying on Aggie?" she whispered, glancing nervously around the precinct lobby. Interesting. Very interesting. This was a new, potentially promising lead. Aggie, it turned out. These unsettling occurrences made her profoundly uncomfortable, to the point where she was actively looking for another apartment. Mr. Peeping Tom, someone of interest. Finally, this might have some promise. My instincts, honed by years of seeing how seemingly minor acts could escalate, quicken. Sexual deviancy, even low-level voyeurism, could be a precursor to something far darker. I knew that often, predators tested boundaries, escalating their behavior when unchecked. We immediately dispatched a team back to Aggie's apartment building, a modest, red-brick, low-rise complex on Willow Street, just off Main. We began speaking to all the residents, seeking confirmation of the Peeping Tom rumor. "Did you, by chance, ever hear anything about someone spying on Aggie? Or looking through her windows? Anything unusual?" I asked, showing them a photo of Aggie. None of the residents seemed to have any knowledge of a Peeping Tom looking in any window, until we encountered a woman in a ground-floor apartment, her face tight with defensiveness. That was my son, Finn Carter, but it was all just a big misunderstanding. She, of course, fiercely denied that her son could have any involvement or responsibility in doing anything harmful to Aggie. "Finn's a good boy," she insisted, her gaze unwavering. We weren't swayed by a mother's loyal, but ultimately transparent, denial. "Would it be possible for us to speak with Finn, ma'am?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. "Sure can," she replied, a faint note of triumph in her voice. "Just go down to the county jail where your people locked him up." A quick check of local records confirmed her claim. Finn Carter, we quickly ascertained, was indeed a local petty criminal, currently locked up, serving a short sentence for a small-time theft conviction that dated back several weeks, encompassing the time of Aggie's murder. He couldn't have been involved. Another promising lead that dissolved into a dead end, adding to the mounting frustration. The next day, Dr. Vance performed the full autopsy on Aggie's body, her methodical precision offering a grim solace in its search for truth. Her findings confirmed our initial observations from the creek, and then added horrifying, meticulous detail to B's last moments. The cause of death was determined to be manual strangulation, Dr. Vance stated, her voice stark, devoid of emotion, yet carrying the weight of ultimate finality. The frigid water had indeed, as she predicted, initially concealed the subtle bruises on Aggie's neck, only to be revealed by the careful examination. There were also some clear signs of trauma in certain areas consistent with sexual assault, in addition to extensive bruising indicative of blunt force trauma to the head and face. Aggie, this kind, gentle woman, had endured a truly brutal and terrifying death, experiencing both sexual violence and a beating before being offering the first tangible, actionable leads to the primary crime scene. "Look closely at her eyes, David," Dr. Vance directed, holding a powerful magnifying glass to Aggie's left eye. There is a blue-tinted soft contact lens, still perfectly in place in her left eye, but there is no contact lens in the right eye. It's missing. Then, as Dr. Vance meticulously combed through Aggie's short, silver hair, her instrument found a small, metallic glint. She carefully plucked it out with tweezers, dropping it onto a sterile cloth. Only the backing, so the earring itself is missing. My mind raced, connecting the dots. A missing blue contact lens, a missing gold earring. These were more than just details. They were fragments of the actual crime scene. microscopic breadcrumbs from the moments of struggle. If we could find the missing earring, or that unique blue-tinted contact lens, it would, with almost mathematical certainty, lead us directly to the precise location where Aggie Callahan met her horrific end, the actual location of the murder, rather than just the dump site. "Thank you very much, Dr. Vance," I said, a renewed sense of purpose invigorating me, chasing away the fatigue. "If you find anything else, please let me know immediately." The question continued to hang heavy in the air, echoing across our small, once peaceful town. Who could do this? Who could do such a horrific thing to Agnes Abernathy? Why would anyone perpetrate such an act of unspeakable evil against such a truly kind, gentle soul, a person renowned for her beautiful spirit? It was a crime that utterly shocked the conscience of Blackwood Creek, transforming it overnight from a sleepy bedroom community into a town gripped by pervasive fear. The chilling realization that a remorseless murderer was at large, walking amongst them. The old was muttered endlessly on every street corner, in every diner. Things like that don't happen here, but unfortunately, things like that do happen in small towns. Beneath the veneer of idyllic charm, there are good people who lead their normal lives, but there are also monsters. And once in a while, under the wrong circumstances, they show themselves, tearing apart the illusion of safety. Aggie's murder ripped through the heart of Blackwood Creek, rocking it to its very core. The community, horrified, traumatized, rallied in its grief and outrage. The tip line flowed with an astronomical amount of information, a continuous deluge of calls from concerned residents. Every single person had a tidbit, a suspicion, a memory they believed might help us. It was a testament to how deeply Aggie had touched their lives. As I meticulously sifted through these anonymous tips, a woman had called, reporting that she was taking her niece to the early morning bus stop, around 5:30 a.m. As they passed the bridge over Raven's Leap Falls, she clearly saw a car parked directly on the bridge itself. The car, she described, was a boxy-style, blue or greenish sedan vehicle. It was completely out of the ordinary for any vehicle, let alone one of that description, to be parked there at that isolated hour. Well, why is it parked there? I pondered, a grim, undeniable answer already forming in my mind. Perhaps, just perhaps, it was parked there because its occupant was in the agonizing. I made a critical mental note. This car, if found, could be another vital piece of evidence, not of the murder itself, but of its terrible aftermath. I continued to reach out, to contact people who knew Aggie. Eventually, we discovered a long-time acquaintance, Harold Jameson. They had, it turned out, maintained an on-again, off-again relationship for years, a complicated dance of affection. This was someone who definitely needed to be intensely drilled down upon. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Mr. Jameson," I began, seating him in a small, windowless interview room at the station. We asked him about their relationship, what the precise status of it was at the time of Aggie's death. He explained that he hadn't spoken with or seen Aggie for about 3 weeks prior to the murder, after a particularly bad argument. Leading into the early morning of June 1st, I probed, my voice even, unrevealing. Harold then gave us a very troubling account of his movements, a story so bizarre, it almost defied belief. "Well, actually, Sergeant, I was over by the spinning cycle laundromat that night," he said, his voice hesitant. My heart leaped. The laundromat, the very place where Aggie's car was found idling, her dog barking frantically inside. "You were—" "Yeah," he continued, nervously fidgeting with his hands. "The night of the 31st, I was out for a bit, driving around, and I happened to drive by the laundromat. I saw Aggie's car, that old Volvo, and it was running right there in front of the place. We'd kind of left things on a bad note a few weeks back. You know, a stupid fight, and I wanted to try and set things right with her. Apologize maybe. So I waited on her." He described parking in a lot next door for a considerable period of time, but he never saw her come out to the car. Eventually, he walked around, checked inside the laundromat, but didn't find her anywhere. "So you didn't think anything was particularly odd about this, Mr. Jameson?" I asked, my voice rising slightly in incredulity. "An idling car, at that hour, with her dog inside, and she was nowhere to be found. And you didn't think to report any of this?" "I didn't know it was bad, Sergeant," he stammered, looking genuinely distraught. "I just didn't think anything about it at the time. I thought maybe she'd gone off with a friend or something. You know, she's an adult. I figured she could take care of herself." I didn't think anything about it. You didn't think about it. This was, without a doubt, one of the worst, most unbelievable stories I'd ever heard. Was it that bad of a lie, carefully constructed to deflect suspicion? Or was he simply, genuinely, a profoundly naive and oblivious blockhead? So utterly dense, he truly wouldn't think anything was amiss about an idling car, a frantically barking dog, and a woman who couldn't be found for hours in a town as small and tightly knit as Blackwood Creek. Look, Sergeant, I would never, ever hurt Aggie, Harold insisted, tears welling in his eyes. I loved her. He seemed visibly distraught about her death. He was cooperative, even consenting immediately to a thorough search of his car. No signs of struggle, no evidence of any kind was found inside. Everything about Harold Jameson checked out, except for the world's most suspiciously ignorant alibi. Not yet. His profound lack of concern was almost as troubling as outright hostility. Chapter 3. The Scratched Face of a Killer. Sergeant Elena Reyes and I were deep in discussion, dissecting the Harold Jameson interview, analyzing the puzzling discrepancies, when the phone on my desk rang, piercing the quiet of my office. It was Chief Williams, his voice clipped, laced with undisguised urgency. Miles, I just received a frantic call from a witness, and tell them not to touch anything. I'll be right down, I replied, already halfway out of my chair, my heart hammered with a renewed sense of purpose. This was it. A direct, undeniable link to Agnes Abernathy's last known whereabouts, to the scene of her actual murder. My unmarked patrol car, siren wailing through the winding streets, cut through the quiet hum of Blackwood Creek. I arrived at the Spinning Cycle Laundromat building, a two-story structure with apartments on the second and third floors, currently undergoing renovations. The air was thick with the scent of fresh-cut wood and plastered dust. A construction foreman, Mr. Kenneth Shaw, a burly man with sawdust clinging to his work clothes, met me at the main entrance, his face pale and agitated. Sergeant Sterling, thank God you're here, Shaw stammered, guiding me quickly upstairs. He recounted how one of his carpenters, Mr. Carl Edwards, had been working on the third-floor apartment unit. As Carl was cutting some planks of unfinished pine, he'd noticed something small and metallic, gleaming faintly outside of the sawdust. An earring. The news of Aggie's brutal murder had, by now, traveled like wildfire through our small town, infiltrating every conversation, every household. Carl had immediately known that this shiny object, found here, had to be connected. He'd carefully secured the area and called the chief directly. The State Police Major Crime Squad was immediately dispatched to the location. They meticulously began their scene investigation, processing every inch of the unfinished apartment. Every tool, every bag of plaster, every pile of sawdust was carefully catalogued and examined. And then, astonishingly, one of the sharp-eyed crime scene detectives made a second, equally critical discovery. Tucked into a tiny crevice in the worn hardwood floor, almost deliberately concealed beneath a small pile of fresh wood shavings, was a small, blue-tinted contact lens. It was the missing blue contact lens from the right eye of Beatrice Callahanaghy. There was no longer any question in anyone's mind. This was the exact location where Aggie met her horrific death. This was the scene of the struggle, the brutal violence. The very place where the last agonizing moments of her life played out. The finding of the primary crime scene provided critical context to our investigation. It indicated to us that the perpetrator had to be somebody with a high degree of familiarity, inherent access, and fundamental comfort with the apartment building. Someone who could easily navigate the construction chaos without raising suspicion. Someone who had keys. Someone who belonged. The carpenter, Mr. Edwards, tells me only 2 people have a key to this particular apartment door. Officer Chun informed me, reviewing the preliminary scene report. Well, there's Victor Hayes, the guy that owns the place. We quickly, fortunately, were able to rule Victor Hayes out. He had a meticulously documented, ironclad alibi, proving he was out of state, visiting family in Portland, at the precise time of the murder. That left Arthur Finch. Arthur Finch, a name that, while new to our specific murder investigation, was vaguely familiar. I had heard it around town, but didn't know him personally. We were not that familiar with Arthur personally. No, I'd later recall, but he was from a local family, known in the community, and his employment at the building, his ready access, his inherent familiarity with its nooks and crannies. He clearly had to be considered our prime suspect. the kind of man who could come and go without notice. Back at the station, a rapid background check on Arthur Finch brought a chilling jolt of recognition. Chief Williams was in my office as I reviewed the file, his expression growing grimmer with each line I read. "Chief, you're not going to believe what I found on this Finch suspect." Arthur Finch wasn't just a maintenance man. He had a prior conviction for stranger abduction and sexual assault dating back to the late 1970s. And, horrifyingly, he had only recently been released from jail after serving a significant sentence, having just come off parole in the past year. This was a massive, seismic shift in the investigation. A predator, previously incarcerated, now walking free amongst us, with a history of sexual violence and abduction. My mind, accustomed to the brutal patterns of predatory behavior, recoiled in cold recognition. He'd been caught once. How many times had he not been caught? This was no longer just a person of interest. This was a likely monster, unleashed, potentially seeking a new victim. I knew I needed to talk to him, immediately. Arthur Finch came in willingly, ostensibly unfazed by the police presence. He was a man in his late 40s, slightly built, with nervous eyes that darted constantly. As he sat down in the sterile interview room, I noticed a distinct, jagged scratch over his nose, extending from one eyebrow to the other. It looked fresh, raw, a nasty mark, one that hinted at a violent struggle. "Mr. Finch," I began, my voice steady, professional, but my eyes fixed on the wound. "That's a nasty mark you got there. How'd that happen? Looks quite deep." I got it at work, Sergeant," he stammered, his gaze darting away from mine, avoiding direct eye contact. "Something happened with some of the lumber." "Yeah, just clumsy." The explanation felt weak, rehearsed, entirely unconvincing, and it was instantly, powerfully suspicious. Finch was intensely sketchy, very nervous about the fact that we were even approaching him, his body language radiating discomfort. But there was something deeper, more insidious than mere nervousness, a coldness behind his eyes, a flicker of suppressed malevolence, a predatory quality that sent a prickle down my spine. This, I thought with a grim certainty, this could be our player. This could be the killer. "Mr. Finch, I wanted to ask you about your prior conviction," I probed, cutting directly to the core of his past. He explained his prior conviction as a misunderstanding, a hazy, self-serving tale of being drunk, making bad choices, and encountering a woman. "Things went wrong, Sergeant," he claimed, carefully selecting his words. He also admitted to abusing drugs and alcohol together at one time in his life, but insisted he doesn't do drugs anymore, still occasionally drinks. "But I got my life together." He presented himself as a reformed man. "Mr. Finch, did you know Agnes Trudy, as many called her?" Blackwood Creek was not a big town. Aggie had lived just up the road from this very building, a well-known figure. There had to have been some passing acquaintanceship, at the very least. This was a definite lie, an immediate red flag. "Can you tell me where you were the night of May 31st? I asked, challenging his already shaky, convenient alibi. He claimed his activities included working in the building during the day, performing maintenance tasks, then going to the Ricci Brothers pizza place across the street to unwind, before finally going home to his apartment and going to bed. His alibi was incredibly thin. He claimed to have spent the latter half of the evening entirely alone, save for his brief stop at the pizza parlor. "Do you drive a car, Mr. Finch?" I asked, moving to a critical logistical point. "I haven't driven a car in a while, Sergeant," he claimed, stating his driver's license was under suspension due to prior duty. If he was truthful about not having a car, it would have been incredibly difficult, almost impossible, for him to dispose of a human body in a remote area like Raven's Leap Falls. This created a new problem for our theory. As the interview continued, and we pressed him further, his composure, however fragile, finally broke. His eyes hardened, and he pushed back from the table. "I do not want to participate in this interview anymore," he stated, his voice sharp, rising slightly with defiance. "I'm done answering your questions." Arthur Finch was still our prime suspect, a very strong one. But despite all the damning circumstantial evidence, the proximity to the crime scene, his ready access, the horrific prior conviction, the physical scratches, the suspicious demeanor, the mounting stack of lies, it didn't yet rise to the level of having probable cause for an arrest. We had to let him go. The frustration gnawed at me, a bitter taste in my mouth. But before he left, I noticed he'd been smoking nervously throughout the interview. flicking ash into a disposable ashtray provided by Officer Chun. "I want to get Officer Chun from the evidence in here," I instructed Sergeant Reyes. "I want to meticulously keep every one of those cigarette butts he smoked and secure them as evidence for possible use in the future." It was 1998. DNA evidence was not yet widely known, nor was it easily accessible or even broadly accepted in many courtrooms. But I was a smart man, keenly aware of the relentless march of scientific advancement. I had a premonition, just might speak a powerful, undeniable truth. Arthur Finch had presented himself as our prime suspect. This case wasn't over. It was merely on pause. Chapter 4. The first crucial step in looking into Arthur Finch very carefully was to expose his lies. My methodical approach always sought out inconsistencies, the telltale signs of a fabricated narrative. I began by systematically questioning the regulars at the spinning cycle, laundromat, and the other residents in Aggie's apartment building. I was wondering if any of you knew anyone by the name of Arthur Finch. The responses came almost immediately, with startling consistency and a palpable undercurrent of unspoken knowledge. "Yeah, I sure did," one elderly woman stated, her eyes narrowing. "Which one do you know about him?" "Oh, everyone here knows Arthur." I found, almost at once, that Finch had lied directly to me. All of them. A parade of ordinary citizens corroborated. Finch knew Aggie. They'd seen him talk to her on many occasions, discussing repairs, or simply exchanging pleasantries common in a small town. We even had witnesses who specifically told us that he had prior conversations with her. In a small town like Blackwood Creek, people talked, and everybody, it seemed, knew everyone's business. Aggie, it turned out, seeking his advice or information on available units. Yet, Finch, to my face, had emphatically denied even knowing who the victim was. Anytime you interview somebody, you're looking for the first lie, because if you lie to me, I'm talking to the right person. Finch's lies were stacking up, forming a precarious, by Finch's own admission in our first interview, on the evening of May 31st, and had consumed a few beers. My next immediate stop was the pizza place, to see what brothers Vincenzo and Carlo Ricci had to say about their interaction with Mr. Finch that evening. "How's it going, Vincenzo?" "Hey, detective, how's it going? Come on in." We interviewed both brothers, Vincenzo and Carlo Ricci, who owned the Cheesy Corner. I later recounted to Sergeant Reyes. They both knew the maintenance guy, Arthur Finch. He came across as actually a really nice guy. They said, quite friendly, a regular. He would come in quite frequently, usually to unwind after his shift. "Was he here on the 31st? I asked. "Oh yeah, he was here," Detective Vincenzo confirmed, wiping flour from his apron. He was different. The biggest thing I remember were his eyes. They were just so red, so glossy. He looked absolutely miserable. Both brothers described him as being profoundly depressed and definitely under the influence of alcohol, if not something stronger. "Hey Arthur, you doing okay? You seem a little upset, buddy?" Carlo had asked him, concern evident in his voice. Apparently, the woman that he was with, Clara, he claimed to have caught her with another man. He said he simply could not handle that, and he had gotten really, really upset. He claimed to have been drinking steadily since then, trying to drown his sorrows. Carlo's sister, Maria, who also worked behind the counter, a kind-hearted woman, even sat down with him for a moment, trying to offer some comfort. Finch, desperate for companionship or distraction, had even brazenly asked her to go to the local bowling alley down the street with him. "Come on, Maria, you can come for a little while, right? Just to talk." Maria, visibly uncomfortable, had politely declined, stating they were about to close up shop, and she needed to help her brother. It had been, both brothers confirmed, a very uncomfortable scene. "I knew there was definitely something wrong with him that night," Vincenzo stated, a grim look on his face. I was now fully aware that Arthur Finch had told me not one, but two major demonstrable lies. First, his categorical denial that he didn't know Aggie Abernathy. Second, his insistent claim that he had given up drugs and alcohol and was a changed person, rehabilitated from his past vices. These lies painted a chilling picture of a man desperate to conceal his true nature, a man teetering on the edge of a violent unraveling. So I brought Finch back in for a second interview, ready to confront him with the overwhelming accumulating evidence of his deceit. The mask he had so carefully constructed was about to be ripped away. "Arthur, we know you knew Aggie Abernathy. They saw you interact. They saw you talk to her." "No, No, he insisted again, stubbornly, vehemently, clinging to the initial lie, even when faced with overwhelming evidence. At that point, he still, incredibly, claimed he did not know Aggie, but his resolve was clearly weakening. He did, however, finally admit to having fallen off the wagon, conceding that he had indeed been drinking heavily. This, he maintained, was solely because he was so distraught over his cheating ex-girlfriend. It was an excuse, a partial truth intended to camouflage a deeper, more monstrous one. "What's your girlfriend's name, Arthur?" I pressed, shifting the focus abruptly, looking for any other points of leverage, any other threads to pull. Clara. Clara what? Finch was emotional, distraught, putting on a whole scene, his shoulders slumping, his voice trembling. He acted as if he couldn't believe that he was being blamed for this heinous crime, for Aggie's murder. "I'm done with all this," he protested, attempting to be dismissive, agitated. "You're just blaming me for things I didn't do." At that point, we still didn't have sufficient physical evidence directly linking him to the murder for an immediate arrest. But Mr. Finch, with every word, every lie, every desperate deflection, was digging his own grave deeper. Crucially, the most important piece of information to emerge from this second interview, amidst his dramatic performance, was that he was finally able to obtain the full name of this girlfriend, Clara Jensen. This was, according to Finch, the cheating ex-girlfriend that had driven him to drink and drugs, who had sent him spiraling into this dark night of emotional distress. That was a truly significant lead. We immediately went out and interviewed Clara Jensen. She was a woman in her late 30s, looking exhausted and weary, but determined to speak her truth, painting a chilling, horrifyingly accurate picture of Finch's true character, far from the innocent, heartbroken victim he portrayed himself to be. "I don't even know where to begin with that man. Detective," she began, shaking her head. "He's out of control, an absolute menace when he drinks." Her story was damning. Finch had indeed been drinking heavily and using drugs again recently. She had, as a result, effectively thrown him out of her place, desperate to escape his spiraling rage. I now had clear, cunning fabrication. But then, at the very end of her detailed statement, Clara delivered a final, crucial bombshell, a piece of information that made my heart leap in my chest. When I finally threw Arthur out of my place, he didn't just leave. It was a distinctive, boxy-style sedan that was a peculiar shade of faded blue-green in color. Really? My mind immediately flashed back to that anonymous tip I had received just days after Aggie's body was discovered. Parked on the bridge directly over Ravensleep Falls, at an unusual hour. The car. That was important. I knew instantly, my mind racing, connecting the disparate threads. That was a very strong, undeniable piece of the investigation at that point. Another thick, rusty nail hammered directly into Mr. Finch's coffin. I thanked Clara Jensen for her words, her courage, and her critical information. The pieces of the puzzle were finally, sickeningly, slotting into place. Now, I faced the urgent, final task of finding that car. And remarkably, almost as if drawn by the gravitational pull of justice, the car found us. A guy named Julian Cross called the police station. "How are you doing, Mr. Cross? I hear you have something that might interest me." Julian explained that he had, indeed, a blue-green vintage Volvo S70 sedan, matching Clara's description, parked prominently in his yard. He recounted how Finch had called him, frantic, asking him to take the car up to a remote, rarely used logging road north of town and to park it in a very specific, isolated spot, obscured from view. But Julian, uneasy about Finch's recent behavior and deeply unsettled by the omnipresent news of Aggie Abernathy's brutal murder, had just had a profoundly bad feeling about it. His conscience, combined with a primal fear of being implicated, had driven him to a crucial decision. He decided, instead of hiding it, to bring the car directly to the police station. It's another big gotcha moment in the case, I reflected later, the pieces of evidence finally overwhelming. We strongly suspected that this specific car had been used in the transportation of Aggie's deceased body to Ravensleep Falls. We immediately, unequivocally, seized the vehicle. We hoped, desperately, to find some biological trace evidence in that car. I immediately called in the state police CSI tech team, instructing them to deploy every resource available. They meticulously went over the car, inch by painstaking inch. After hours of careful work, They found what they believed to be a faint body fluid stain on the passenger seat, almost imperceptible to the naked eye. A dark smear barely visible against the faded upholstery. They carefully removed that section of the seat cover and sealed it for transport to the state laboratory for analysis. Waiting for the results from the forensic lab was a long, painstaking process. Each day stretched into an eternity of frustration and agonizing anticipation. They had to do things very meticulously to ensure chain of custody and scientific rigor, and that simply took time. Weeks crawled by, each passing day a test of patience. Each call to the lab met with the same answer: still processing, Sergeant. Yet insistent inquiries. The results came in. Sergeant Sterling, the lab technician's voice, was, as ever, calm, professional, yet carrying a faint note of caution. The news was a mixed bag, offering both a crucial link and a frustrating limitation. The samples from the car definitively matched Aggie Abernathy's bodily fluids. It unequivocally tied her, and therefore her murderer, to the specific car, confirming its use as the method of transportation for her remains to Raven's Leap Falls. Another vital, irrefutable link in the chain of evidence. But then, the disheartening news. No discernible genetic material from Arthur Finch was found within the body fluid stains that could be reliably sampled and profiled. The State Police Laboratory, using the forensic capabilities available in 1998, claimed they were unable to get any conclusive DNA readings or what they called amplification from the minuscule, degraded material they had. We had hoped, desperately, for biological evidence directly connecting Finch and Aggie, in an undeniable, provable sense. And, devastatingly, we didn't get that. We could say that Finch had undisputed access to the car, and that Aggie's bodily fluids were undeniably in it. But, critically, we did not have any scientific evidence proving that Finch himself was the one driving the car, or that he was in it with her during the murder. I was left with a powerful, burning conviction. I was profoundly convinced that Arthur Finch was Aggie Abernathy's rapist and murderer. But without that direct DNA link, I was unable to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt in a courtroom. We would only get one shot at this. If a jury threw it out, if they returned a not guilty verdict, we could never come back at him. All the overwhelming circumstantial evidence, the accumulating lies, the unparalleled access, the horrific prior conviction for sexual assault and abduction, the physical scratches on his face, the suspicious demeanor, the car linked directly to the victim, all pointed inexorably to him. But without that final, clinching, scientific piece of direct evidence, to secure an arrest and a subsequent conviction that would withstand a vigorous defense. I waited. Chapter 5. Justice delayed. The waiting was excruciating. But patience, a grim necessity in the desolate world of cold cases, was something I had cultivated over years, something I now possessed, something I needed to exercise. I knew, with a gut certainty, that I couldn't prosecute Arthur Finch then and there. Not yet. Not in 1998. The forensic science wasn't ready for him. I had to wait for some other method, some future scientific advancement, to unequivocally tie Mr. Finch to this horrific crime. The law demanded irrefutable proof. The frustration of living with an unsolved case, a brutal murder whose perpetrator I knew yet couldn't fully bring to justice, was a heavy burden to deal with day in and day out. It was even more difficult in a small town like Blackwood Creek, where everyone knew me. They saw me, Detective Sergeant Miles Corbin, the lead investigator, as the stumbling block between justice and the brutal, senseless death of a beloved community member. You see these people at church, in the grocery store, at every town meeting, at every turn, and you see the look they give you, the look of disappointment, the look of blame, the look of guilt, the unspoken accusation that you, their local lawman, had somehow failed them. It was particularly difficult to face B's daughters, Abigail and Iris. Their grief remained raw, their questions constant, their eyes pleading for answers I couldn't yet give them. There were so many crucial investigative details I couldn't tell them, elements of Finch's lies and Clara Jensen's story that had to remain confidential, for the ultimate integrity of a future prosecution. Why would somebody have done that? How could you? How could you do something like that? Their voices, thick with pain, still echoed in my memory. We heard the scuttlebutt. But I, Sergeant Sterling, did not quit. We just kept meticulously piling up all the evidence that we could, preserving it, cataloging it, waiting for its day. But the more time that passed, the stronger the grim reality became. I was still absent some vital linking pieces, some technological breakthrough, to bring this whole thing together and secure an ironclad conviction. The initial scientific limitations were a stark barrier. I explored every avenue, every possibility, leaving no stone unturned in my relentless pursuit. At one point, we found some unique wood shavings from Clara Jensen's vintage Volvo is-70, Carthaveri Carfinch-driven. These shavings, distinct and unusual, I believed might be a potential answer to my prayers, a novel piece of trace evidence. I approached our state lab director, Dr. Elena Vargas, with the idea. Sergeant Sterling came to me, Dr. Vargas would recall, and was discussing the wood that was found in the car. He wanted somebody, an expert, to compare it to the wood at what we believed to be the primary crime scene in the apartment above, the spinning cycle laundromat. I found out the FBI has a wood expert, Dr. Vargas stated, her tone one of mild amusement, but also professional respect for my tenacity. A wood expert, I retorted, genuinely incredulous. What do you mean? There's a professor of wood. Is that even a real thing? But if there was an expert, anywhere in the country, who could help, I would use them. I had to. We secured funding and authorization, and brought in experts in forensic wood evidence, consultants from outside the state lab, seasoned botanists. They meticulously analyzed the samples. Their determination, after painstaking microscopic and chemical analysis, was detailed and compelling. Originated from the specific construction materials at the apartment building above the laundromat, proving they were transferred from the primary crime scene into the car, and subsequently could have been transferred to the secondary dump site at Raven's Leap Falls. It was innovative, cutting-edge trace evidence for 1998, pushing the boundaries of forensic science. But it was, in a sense, what would later be viewed as junk science, relative to what the future would hold. Everyone, even then, was beginning to talk about DNA. Everyone wanted that sure hit, the ceiling-high probability numbers that indisputable DNA evidence could provide. So the prosecutor, after reviewing the detailed, technical report, looked at me, a slight frown of polite skepticism on his face, and said, "Okay, David, you've got wood chips. That's good. Thank you for your It was a polite dismissal, an acknowledgement of my dedication, but a clear sign that my evidence, however novel, was not quite the smoking gun he needed for a slam-dunk murder conviction against a high-risk defendant. But if you look at where my mind was going on this, you couldn't just see that I wasn't giving up. Emails, letters, pushing the envelope, insisting on retesting in new angles. Hey, how about this? How about this? Let's try this. What new methods are emerging? We had to wait for DNA science to move forward, to evolve into a far more powerful and pervasive investigative tool. We had to wait for some other irrefutable method to unequivocally tie Mr. Finch to this crime. And so, despite my personal conviction and mounting circumstantial evidence, the matter eventually, agonizingly, went cold. It stayed cold for a long, unimaginable time. For 16 years, it stayed cold until the year 2013. 16 long, silent years had passed since the brutal murder of Agnes Abernathy. 16 years of her daughters living with questions, of the community's lingering unease, and of my own quiet, persistent frustration. By 2013, I was nearing the twilight of my career, yet Aggie's file remained a heavy burden in my consciousness. But this particular cold case, like so many others across the nation, finally came down to the unwavering march of science. Technology had advanced in a rapid, almost unimaginable way since 1998, now staffed by a new generation of dedicated, technologically savvy investigators. Finally reopened Aggie Abernathy's file, breathing new life into the old evidence. The original physical evidence minute section of seat cover from Clara Jensen's Volvo, meticulously preserved by my foresight, carefully sealed away, was finally brought out of storage for re-examination. The lab, now equipped with state-of-the-art forensic capabilities, far beyond what existed in 1998, was able to do what was once impossible: identify viable DNA in the minute biological material that had been in Clara Peterson's car. They were able to extract and amplify minuscule traces of semen from the nearly invisible body fluid stains on the seat cover, degraded samples that the earlier methods simply couldn't detect or amplify. And then, in a dramatic, long-awaited breakthrough, using that genetic profile, they compared it to the cigarette butts that I to keep when I first talked to Arthur Finch back in 1998, preserving them against all odds. And there it was. A direct, unequivocal match. There were strong, astronomically high probability matches from the DNA on the cigarette butts, unequivocally linking Arthur Finch to the genetic material found in Clara's car, which in turn was linked to Aggie Abernathy. We had them at this point. Sergeant Sterling, the lead cold case detective, a young woman named Amelia Reyes, the daughter of my former patrol sergeant Elena Reyes, informed me over the phone, her voice brimming with a triumph I had dreamed of for years. The numbers are so astronomically high, miles through the ceiling, that we had them. There's no question. It's him. The arrest warrant was immediately signed, expedited by the overwhelming, irrefutable evidence. Arthur Finch had a new address. We had known, through my diligence and the continuous, low-level monitoring I had maintained over the years, that Finch had eventually relocated and was residing in a quiet town in coastal South Carolina. A joint team of investigators from the state's attorney's cold case unit, along with federal assistance, traveled south and arrested him without incident. He was transported back north, up to Connecticut, brought back to the very state where he had committed his heinous crime. They attempted an interview. He wouldn't say a word, his face a stone mask of defiance, even when presented with the cold, hard, irrefutable evidence. He remained a silent, stubborn, cold figure, attempting to cling to the last vestiges of his control, but his silence no longer mattered. The evidence spoke for him. The likelihood was now great, virtually certain, that the crime occurred in the following. High on whatever he had been consuming, fueled by the corrosive mixture of alcohol and anger after being turned down and rejected by Maria, and freshly infuriated by his cheating girlfriend, Clara. He hated the world, and most likely, he particularly hated women at that moment, seeking an outlet for his simmering rage. And then, in a horrifying twist of fate, he saw Agnes Abernathy. Somebody he knew, someone familiar, kind, One must keep in mind that sexual assault is not, fundamentally, a crime of sexual gratification. It's a crime of power, of control, often deeply rooted in the perpetrator's profound misogyny, a heinous act of the punishment and degradation of women. And he desperately needed to hurt someone, to reassert a twisted sense of control. And he selected Callahan, a woman of warmth and kindness, precisely because of her gentle nature, a vulnerable target for his monstrous impulses. Hey, Aggie. The one I was telling you about for possibly relocating. Did you want to come up and check it out real quick? Oh, Arthur, I probably shouldn't. I've got Fifi, my dog, in the car, in my laundry. Come on, it'll be fast. Then you can go. Won't take long at all. Just upstairs. He lured her up into that empty, isolated apartment unit, the very space that would become the primary crime scene. Aggie, innocent, unsuspecting, trusting in the familiarity of her building's maintenance man, went with him. She didn't feel threatened by him. She had no idea she was placing herself in that type of grave, mortal danger. Once they got up into the apartment, the door closed, and the monster inside Arthur Finch emerged. He attacked her brutally. He raped her. He manually strangled her, savagely taking her life. Then, with chilling premeditation, he bound her lifeless body with duct tape and placed her in the backseat of Clara's Volvo, her own car still idling outside the laundromat. He drove her to the secluded Raven's Leap Falls. In the early hours of the morning, the blue-green sedan a ghostly, boxy shape in the dim pre-dawn light. There, with cold contempt, he dragged her body from the car and then threw her into the stream, discarding her like garbage, a final act of desecration. He then went on about his miserable life, convinced he had outwitted justice, until the relentless march of science and the unwavering dedication of detectives finally caught up to him. Arthur Finch was formally charged with murder and presented before a judge at Superior Court in Middletown, Connecticut. I was there, sitting in the courtroom, watching him. I was shocked, truly shocked, at his appearance. The wiry, nervous man I remembered from 1998 was gone, replaced by a husk of a man. He was morbidly obese, his body frail and failing, slumped in a wheelchair, connected to a nasal cannula, providing oxygen. You know, karma comes back. It does. The case proceeded through its arduous prosecution phase, The weight of the new DNA evidence Finally, in 2016, facing an insurmountable mountain of forensic proof and the prospect of a length, he was sentenced to the rest of his natural life in prison. Given his precarious physical condition, his rapidly deteriorating health, he wasn't going to last that long in prison, but that's precisely where he went. He would not get out alive, no doubt. His freedom, finally and forever, was gone. Though still etched with the pain of decades, now bore a fragile sense of closure, of peace. I'm glad he's finally paying the price for what he did, Grace said outside the courtroom, her voice clear, firm, a profound strength emanating from her. Arthur did an awful lot of damage that night, to a lot of people, to Aggie, to her family, to the entire town. Iris, still remembering her mother's unique warmth, added softly, her voice thick with emotion, someone who was so deeply loved, who was so incredibly kind to people, so caring, she's truly, truly missed. We had heard the whispers, back in the day, but we knew, with quiet conviction, that we could do the case. I personally have no regrets as to how long this took. I carry a lot of frustration from the years of waiting, the quiet battles fought, but I also carry a profound sense of satisfaction. If I had not resolved this case to this day, I still would be working on it, because justice demanded it. And now, justice has been provided. He met his justice, and Agnes Abernathy, at long last, found her. The cold current of her murder finally found its justice. Part 2, The Ghost in the Machine. Chapter 6, Crimson Bay Morning. Still carried the echoes of past investigations, of lives irrevocably changed. The calendar read June 25, 2016, and I was nearing the end of my storied career with the Viridian Heights Police Department. The early morning fog, a common curtain along the Oregon coast. Today, however, that familiar fog did little to soothe the frayed nerves of Evelyn Albright. Evelyn, a woman in her late 30s, had been out since mid-morning with her two youngest, Clara and Leo. The cheerful insistence of her children for brightly colored toys. The mundane rhythm of consumerism was her reality. Her husband, Arthur Caldwell, was at home, ostensibly working on a project in the garage. They were just unloading the last of the shopping bags from the minivan into the kitchen, the flimsy plastic rustling, when the ordinary shattered with brutal abruptness. Heard at first a sound that, even now, years later, reverberated in her nightmares with chilling clarity. Clara, her spirited 7-year-old daughter, let out a piercing scream from deeper within the house, from the area of the garage entrance. "Mom, what is going on?" The pure, unadulterated terror in her child's voice froze Evelyn in her tracks, her muscles locking, his small face pale and twisted with an expression Eleanor had never seen, a blank, horrified stare. His tiny finger pointed, trembling, towards the hallway leading from the garage. "Mom, there's blood everywhere." His voice was a thin, reedy whisper, devoid of its usual playful cheer, stripped of all childish innocence. The groceries clattered to the floor, milk cartons splitting open, milk pooling white against the linoleum. Her mind reeled, grasping frantically for a rational explanation. An accident, a clumsy fall. But Leo's words, blood everywhere, the image clawed at her, raw and terrifying, painted in her imagination even before she saw it. She didn't dare go further inside. Her instinct, primal and absolute, was to protect her children, to shield them from whatever monstrous scene awaited them. She scrambled back out of the house, fumbling for her phone with trembling fingers, the cold plastic suddenly feeling alien, slippery, in her grasp. The chill of the coastal fog seemed to intensify, wrapping around her in a suffocating, almost predatory embrace. Dialing 911, her voice rose in a frantic, hysterical shriek. "What's the emergency, ma'am?" The dispatcher's calm/measured tones were a stark, unsettling contrast to her own escalating panic, her barely coherent terror. Arthur, is he alive?" The name of her husband, Arthur Caldwell, tore from her throat. His unwavering, if sometimes gruff affection, the constant hum of their complicated life. She couldn't process the sudden, terrifying vacuum his absence implied. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Who is Arthur? Can you tell me what happened?" The dispatcher patiently prompted, trying to pull coherence from chaos. "My husband, he's hurt. There's so much blood." The dispatcher was trying to talk her through it, guiding her, but the words were a muffled jumble in her terror-stricken mind, a cacophony of fear and desperate plea. The officers are driving there as fast as they can. Okay, ma'am. Can you tell me what you see from where you are, from the street? I'm scared. What do I do? What do I do? Evelyn sank onto the porch steps, pulling her children close, shielding them with her own trembling body, her own heart-rending sobs mixing with Clara's silent tears. She was too consumed by her own unraveling horror to truly comprehend the full scope of what had befallen Arthur Cole. And when she finally did, when the truth was laid bare, she would be irrevocably, utterly shattered. As a senior investigator with the Viridian Heights Police Department's Homicide Bureau, I carried the weight of decades of crime. The phrase "I was across town" that starts this story comes from Officer Kevin Miller, one of my junior officers. The call had initially come through as a medical call, they said, but the lack of specifics, the raw, palpable panic in the civilian 911 call, it always hinted at something more. As Miller raced through the familiar streets of Viridian Heights, the siren of his responding patrol unit screaming ahead, he felt that familiar tightening in his gut. When Officer Miller arrived at the address on Cedarwood Drive, the scene was already in disarray. His own patrol unit, its lights strobing silent patterns of red and blue, was joined moments later by an ambulance, completing the suburban tableau of crisis. Clara and Leo, with 3 other younger Caldwell children inside, were huddled on the sidewalk outside, clutching each other, their faces pale and tear. The sight sent a cold prickle down Miller's spine. What am I walking into? Ma'am, what's going on? Miller asked Evelyn, trying to glean coherent information, but she was largely incoherent, her body trembling with uncontrolled fear, her answers choked by sobs. Miller pulled on his standard tissue gloves, adjusting his sidearm, the familiar weight, a cold comfort in the rising tide of dread. His mind, trained for protocol and worst-case scenarios, went on high alert. With a curt nod to his backup, he walked towards the open front door, a subtle scent, metallic and vaguely sweet, growing stronger with each tentative step. Mr. Caldwell, he called out, his voice deep, resonant, designed to carry. It wasn't a scene of overt chaos or violent destruction, but rather a profound state of general disarray. Dishes piled high in the sink, stale food odors lingering. It felt less like a carefully staged home, and more like a space that had been relentlessly, chaotically lived in, with little time or care for tidiness. Mentally noting that this might simply be the family's established living condition, not necessarily the immediate result of a struggle or a frantic run. And that's when he saw him. Jesus. Arthur Caldwell lay on the stained linoleum floor, half slumped against the lower kitchen cabinets, his head tilted at an unnatural, horrifying angle. His form was almost indistinguishable from the expansive, horrifying crimson pool that surrounded his head. It had already begun to coagulate, a thick, dark, viscous mass against the pale kitchen floor. The sight was instantly, viscerally, sickening, a tableau of brutal, inexplicable violence. A fragile, flickering spark of life. We got you, buddy. Hang in there. Even as his mind rapidly processed the horror before him, the magnitude of the blood loss. The initial 911 call, reporting an accident and a bleeding victim, had been standard procedure. Officer Miller's immediate thought, seeing the extent of the blood, was similar. He must have hit his head on the counter or something, really hard, he muttered to himself, his face pale with shock. He was looking around, his eyes scanning the chaotic kitchen. Did Arthur have some type of sudden, severe medical emergency, collapsing and striking his head on the unforgiving edge of a countertop? The blood pattern, however, was immense. Too much, far too much, for a mere bump, however severe. Miller was trying desperately to make sense of the grim tableau, struggling to fit it into the box of accidental. A moment later, the EM rushed in, their voices terse, efficient, their movements practiced. They quickly began their assessment, preparing Arthur for immediate transport. "We're going to transport him now, officer," one of them said. "He's got major trauma, critical condition." Miller knelt, reaching for Arthur's feet to assist in lifting him onto the stretcher, ensuring gentle handling for such a delicate transfer. And as they carefully raised him, Miller's gloved hand brushed against something on the inside of Arthur's shirt, near his lower back. Something small, hard, metallic, and distinctly, disturbingly out of place. He pulled his hand back, frowning, and peered closer at the fabric. There was a faint, clean tear in the material, and a tiny, misshapen fragment embedded deeply in the weave. His breath caught. "There's no way," Miller murmured, disbelief warring with a sudden, terrible, horrifying certainty. He bent closer, pulling the fabric taut, using a small penlight to illuminate the fragment. And then, with a jolt that went straight to his core, it clicked. The fragment wasn't from a household appliance or a piece of debris from the unkempt kitchen. It was bullet-lead. His voice, usually calm and composed, held an undeniable, sharp edge of shock and alarm. Everyone stopped. The organized chaos of emergency response froze, suspended in a horrified tap. The EMTs looked at Miller, confusion, then dawning, horrified comprehension in their eyes. His backup officer took an involuntary step back, his jaw slack. This was no accident. This was murder, or, at the very least, attempted murder of the most brutal kind. As Arthur Caldwell was swiftly loaded into the ambulance, destined for the sterile, buzzing world of the emergency room, his fragile life hanging by a thread, Officer Miller barked into his radio. "This is an active crime scene. Suspect is still at large. Victim is GSW severe head trauma." The quiet Saturday morning in Viridian Heights had just detonated. And for me, Miles Corbin, the weary voice of experience, the call was about to come. Chapter 7. The .22 caliber conundrum. The notification reached me just as I was enjoying a rare, uninterrupted cup of coffee at the precinct, reviewing old cold case files. The call from dispatch was Kurt, former GSW male victim, Cedarwood Drive. My old instincts, finely honed over decades, immediately I was on my way. "Miles, glad you're here." Officer Miller greeted me at the crime scene, relief evident on his young face. "Detective Elena Vargas is already inside with CSU." Elena Vargas, a sharp, ambitious detective recently transferred from property crimes, now dipping her feet into the volatile, high-stakes world of homicide under my men. I'd seen her potential, her methodical precision, her keen eye for detail. This would be her first time as a lead investigator on a full-blown homicide. "Vargas, what have we got?" I asked, stepping over the crime scene tape, the metallic temps of blood now subtly permeating the humid Oregon air. Elena emerged from the house, her face pale but resolute, notebook clutched in her gloved hand. "Sergeant Corbin, victim is Arthur Caldwell, found severely injured, single gunshot wound to the back of the head, currently at St. Jude's Medical Center, listed in critical condition." She glanced at Miller, offering a subtle nod of commendation. "Historically speaking, Elena," I said, my voice grave, "a GSW to the back of the head that almost always turns into a homicide. So we're working this as if it already is. Full protocol." Elena nodded, her jaw set. Her pen was already scratching furiously in her notebook. She led me inside, retracing the path of Officer Miller. The interior of the house, as Miller had noted, was a chaotic mess of daily living. Dishes piled high in the sink, stale food odors, lingering, children's toys scattered, clothes strewn haphazardly. It felt less like an intentionally ransacked scene, and more like a deeply lived-in. Stuff everywhere. Initially, Officer Miller assumed this was simply the family's established living condition. "Not necessarily part of the crime," Elena summarized, her finger pointing at various accumulations of domestic debris. We made our way into the kitchen, the air now thick with the cloying, coppery scent of blood, mingled with the faint chemical odor of latent print dust from CSU's preliminary work. Arthur Caldwell was shot right in the threshold of the door leading from the garage into the kitchen, Elena explained, gesturing with her gloved hand towards the doorway. "Blood patterns suggests he was walking this way. From the garage into the kitchen. He opens the door, takes a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. The projectile seems to have penetrated and then likely passed through or fragmented, splattering some brain tissue and blood right here, by the doorframe, upon impact." My eyes narrowed as I mentally recreated the horrifying sequence, playing it out in the theater of my mind. "I'm imagining where the shooter would have been standing," I mused aloud, pacing a short distance. "This gives us an initial indication of trajectory, and where the bullet might have traveled beyond the victim. The exit wound, or projectile path, was critical." As Elena processed this, her gaze, sharp and observant, drifted towards the adjacent living room, visible through an open archway. Her eyes widened slightly. I followed her gaze. "A bullet hole," I confirmed, moving closer, my eyes scanning the pattern. Looks like a clean hit. You can tell it was a straightened impact, not a ricochet from another surface, not a fragment from the victim. The entire force of the projectile, or a substantial fragment, struck the screen directly. Elena bent to examine it, pulling out a small measuring tape from her kit. Looks like a .22 caliber. Sergeant, she stated, her brow furrowed. The entry aperture is incredibly small. The discovery sent a peculiar chill through us both. .22 caliber, I repeated. The caliber of the firearm hanging heavy in the humid air. A peculiar choice for such a violent act. Unique. .22s are usually small game rifles, plinking guns, target-practiced weapons. And usually, when something is odd, it's significant. The crime scene, stripped of the immediate emergency and now a meticulous mosaic of evidence markers, spoke volumes. But its language was initially muddled, obscured by layers of everyday life. We began as all homicide investigations do, grappling with the unknown. What had truly transpired here? We started to brainstorm, considering all possibilities. Could be a home invasion, a botched burglary, an unfortunate victim caught in the crossfire of some external criminal element, I offered, running through the possibilities common to our district. It's not entirely uncommon in Viridian Heights. Arthur Street, while seemingly quiet, was indeed bordered by areas with documented issues of drug activity, gang violence, and property crime. But as Elena and I scoured the house, every corner, every cupboard, every doorframe, the theory of a random home invasion began to unravel, systematically disproven by the physical absence of evidence. There was no forced entry. None of the doors had been kicked in. No window screens appeared tampered with. No broken panes of glass. No obvious signs of ransacking. No rifled drawers. No overturned furniture. No empty jewelry boxes.